pretend you are John Wick or Agent 47, okay? And you are running away from a bunch of goons trying to chase you down, and you have no gun, no muffin, no pencil to defend yourself with. However, what you do find is a whole high school orchestra room filled to the brim with a bunch of different musical instruments. And you can choose from different instruments to defend yourself with. However, some are obviously going to be better at defending yourself with and killing people than others. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to be doing a tier list video of how lethal an instrument is. So when rating these instruments, I'm gonna rate them based off of the mainly two criteria. Obviously, how good a weapon instrument is at disabling a person, such as either killing them, outright killing them, or knocking them out, or at least being able to defend yourself with them. And I'm also gonna be looking for how well you can play that instrument while being able to defend and kill people with. Also, I'm not gonna be considering durability, because lots of instruments, when you bonk them or drop them, they're gonna go out of tune immediately, and it'll be kind of boring because they'll be like, oh, you hit someone once and now it's out of tune, so it's a sucky instrument. Like, no, going purely on just the instrument itself as best as I can. It also will include any attachments or any other tools you have to use in order to play the instrument. So to start off, we have the good old classic violin. Everyone loves a violin. The orchestra loves a violin. There is two sections filled with violins, and there's a lot of violins. It is very lightweight, so you have a lot of maneuverability, but you can also hold it with the neck, and kind of use it as a little swapping tool. And you have a bow, so if you basically could dual wield if you wanted. You can use the violin as kind of a shield slash hammer thing, and then be poking people with the bow. However, actually playing it's gonna be a lot harder. I don't even know how to play a violin, but you have it like this, right? And you have it like this. And you'd also have to have a shoulder rest to prop the violin up, so you have to properly place that down and hope that that doesn't come loose. And you have to whoa, and you can't exactly maneuver around as much with a violin and bow in hand. I mean, is it Lindsay Sterling that danced with the violin? Hold on. Okay, yeah, she's the one that danced with the violin. Unless you're Lindsay Sterling, you're not gonna be really knocking people out while dancing. I'd say this is a C tier. It's got good fighting potential as the weapon, as an instrument itself. However, if you want to actually play it while fighting someone, it's not gonna work out unless you're Lindsay Sterling. So that's a good C tier. Let's go with the flute. So this, I'd say, is kind of like a disjointed hitbox weapon in Smash Bros. Flutes are pretty durable, I'd say. They're pretty long, and you can kind of poke at the enemy, keeping at bay. However, once again, playing it is a different thing. You have to kind of precisely blow into the flute at a certain way. Basically, you hold it off to the side more instead of forward. So you want to be like, oh, whoo, whoo, whoo. You have to go and then go whack like that if you really wanted to. So kind of similar situation with the violin. So I think C tier for the flute would be pretty good. Now let's go for a percussion. The tambourine. Now this one's got fighting potential. Look at this. This is a tambourine, right? And you go, and it'll start making bell sounds. You can go whoa, and you can block enemy bullets and swords, I guess, with this if you really want to. And then you could go bonk, and it's a pretty hefty weapon, I'd say. A bit more, actually no, it's a bit more lightweight because it is on the lighter side. However, it'd be good for defending yourself and discombobulating the enemy. And because of that, I'd say we'd have our first B tier. Actually, let's go A tier for now, because it's the most mobile, most simple weapon that we've come across so far. So I'd say that's a pretty good solid A tier. Let's go for our first demonstration. This is an automaton. Automatones come in two variations. You got your small, and this one's Kirby decorated, so it gets bonus points. You place your finger along this kind of metallic looking part, and you press down. And then you also have to open the mouth if you want it to be less muted. You also got Chonky Boys. And the Chonky Boys even come with a little strap to make sure that you don't let go of the weapon. They're a lot louder. You can even connect them to a speaker, I think, based off of these things. And then, with these two variations, they come with two different advantages. You can keep the enemy at bay, you can whack them, you can stab them in the eye with this part if you really want to. However, actually playing it, you'd have to you have a less more weight to your attacks, as you'd have to kind of butt your fingers like that and that. I feel like these, you could actually, if you had two of them, you could dual wield, okay? So you have a lot more lighter weight, less range, but faster attacks. You can even do cool finger tricks. Wow, whoa. You could definitely play both automatons. but you can't exactly play well with them. Actually, hold on. Looking back at violin, the thing with violin is that it's an entire string, and it makes it a lot more harder to play precisely because you don't have buttons to actually like get that specific note. You have to find it with the violin. And during a fight, that's gonna be a lot harder. Violin at D tier, automaton at C tier. Sorry to violin fans, just saying. It's kind of hard to keep in tune. Let's look at one of the heftier instruments, the good old grand piano. So you can't exactly wield a grand piano, but you could definitely utilize a grand piano. If you look at a picture of a grand piano, most grand pianos have wheels. Hypothetically, you could use it as a moving tank to push away enemies while also playing piano. But because you can't exactly wield it, you'd be more playing around it while trying to kick enemies away. And you can also hurt yourself if you're not careful. Yeah, that's a failed edition. Sorry, pianists. That's a failed edition right there. Now, let's switch it up to another woodwind. The saxophone. Now, there's different types of saxophones, okay? For the sake of this tier list, I'm going to clump them all together. And I'd say that the saxophone, I feel like it do a pretty good job in a fight. First of all, they're very hefty as well. They could act as a disjointed hitbox, because it's kind of like a longer thing. You kind of hold it like this. However, it's also quite like a hammer, because it got the heavier end where the actual notes come out. So you could go BAM! Into the head of an enemy. Pretend this is a saxophone, right? You blow into the saxophone through the reed, and then you would press buttons down while blowing it. And that's actually a pretty good maneuverable attack you could do. You can go around, and because it's buttons instead of actual strings where like it's not specified notes, you would have a lot easier time choosing what notes to play. You could play Careless Whisper if you wanted to. It's not the most handleable while playing, so I'll say that's a B tier. Or maybe A tier, because actually I'm gonna switch to tambourine and the percussion and the saxophone around, because tambourine, although it's a way more lightweight and able to actually move more maneuverable, it's not gonna do as much damage. And it's not that varied. The songs it can play. The guitar, which I've never actually seen one, is gonna be pretty good, I'd say. You'd still get the musical potential of a piano. However, hold on, automaton's coming in handy again. You have a little rope thing, here. You'd be able to play on your piano like, whoa! I mean, that in itself allows for a lot more handability, because you wouldn't have to worry about actually dropping the piano, or not the piano, dropping the instrument. You'd be able to focus more on playing and just like putting your fingers where the right keys are, instead of having to worry about making sure you're clutching tightly onto that weapon. I'd say that's an A tier. I think with the saxophone, I think that would be a good A tier, because it's got the heft and it's got decent mobility while being able to have the trait of being able to have it secured to your body. Now the oboe, it's on the smaller side. It's not as long or as whopping power of like a flute, and it's also, I think that's one weakness, the reed. The reed can easily break. If you look here, the reed is very thin, and it's at the end, it's protruding out. So one other instrument wielding disjointed musician use this part or end of their weapon, hook that part, break the reed, and now your instrument's disabled. I'm gonna have to give this, I think it's gonna be a D tier. It's still a good whopping, it's still got whopping power. Every instrument's got whopping power, I'd say. But this one's on the lower side, and it's got the weakness of possibly losing every single musicality potential that it's got. So it's gonna have to go into the D tier. Now, the good old trombone. Trombones are interesting because they got the loudness of a trumpet, but also a giant little stick thingy. You could argue that the slide is gonna be allows for a disjointed hitbox, because you could like be playing it, facing it this way, you could go bam, bam, as you punch people in the face, which is true. However, someone could easily come up, grab that end, pull it, and now you lose your instrument and your weapon of choice. I'm gonna rate that as a C tier, because I'd still say that's a better fighting weapon than an oboe and a violin. However, it's got its weaknesses. It's got its weaknesses. Okay, so now we're looking at the cello, and you know, I'm not biased or anything. But have you seen the power and weight a cello has? Have you heard its lustful and deep, rich tones? The cello is a beautiful instrument, and I will take nothing but an S. Crash cymbals are pretty cool, because you would have little like hand thingies to hold it, so there you go, like you have security with holding it. Crash cymbals not only have great security, but then it becomes these giant shields on your hands, and you can basically protect any incoming blocks with the crash cymbals. And then once there's an opening, boom, discombobulate. So I'd say the crash cymbal would be a pretty good weapon. Also, audibly discombobulating because everything that they would do is super loud. So I'd say that goes into the S tier. The tuba is a pretty chonky instrument. It's pretty heavy and hefty. I don't really know if it'd be good in a fight because you have to kind of like, you have to really hug that instrument from what I've seen. To really have it secure, you have to go, and you have to really put in lots of oomph into your notes whenever you play a tuba. So it's got the benefit of buttons, but I feel like you have to use a decent amount of air to get through it, and then you'd also have to continuously grasp it, making it a lot harder to actually fight enemies off. You could, if there's one single enemy, you could do the super ultra move of just jumping up from the heavens, slamming down with the tuba, and blasting one giant note in their ear once you land. But otherwise, it would be a no for me. I'm gonna have to put it in the C tier. Now, the trumpet. Have you seen the amount of annoying you can be with the trumpet and just blasting people's ears? You could also be pretty mobile with it. It's a pretty lightweight weapon on the lighter side of the spectrum, I'd say. And it would just be here. You can just run around and just play the instrument while going crazy. And then it has the benefit of being able to play Gangplank Galleon, okay? And if there's any fight song that'll really just put fear into your enemies, Gangplank Galleon's gonna be the one, because you go screaming at the top of your lungs basically with the trumpet. As an actual weapon, it doesn't have a lot of range, and whopping power, I guess, it's just kind of weird with the little bell at the front. So I don't really know if it'd be really good at actually fighting. I'd say, just because of Gangplank Galleon, I'm gonna put it at B, okay? But otherwise, it's not gonna get a lot. Now, the viola. Let's just get this piece of garbage out of the way. So, the context is why it's orchestra people hate viola, if I got my history correct. Orchestras, when you're trying to get a job, there's a lot of demand for, like, there's a lot of violinists in the world. And even though there's a lot of places in an orchestra for a violin, those slots, you got a lot of competition, and those slots get filled fast. So, the desperate people switch over to the freaking viola, because a lot less people play viola. You know what? No, I'm gonna declare it. Yeah, that's the history. So basically, if you're a violist, you're a cheapskate that can't even contend with the rest of the people, which is already why you're garbage. Going into failed audition, no more discussion. If you're a violist, fight me. Now, the accordion. Accordion's fun. Accordions are cool. They sound really cool. They got a little baggy air kind of thing, and they got little piano pieces and a little button on the side, and it's played by Weird Al Yankovic. You have a pretty good time fighting with a accordion. You can use it as a bit of, like, more disjoint, like, basically like a Z grab in Smash Bros. When you shoot, like, when you have, like, a longer range grab, you can kind of do that with accordion. You can just go, whoop-wow! And then the other end of it would string out, and then they would coil back in. Well, not fully coil back in, you'd kind of have to grab the side again, but you get the point. Actually, playing it would be pretty cool. You can kind of run around with it, you could go, whoop-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. I've never actually held an accordion, but I'd say that the accordion's got a pretty good chance of doing, like, it's got weight to it, it's got range, it's got fun meme potential with the songs you can play while you're running around. It's an A tier. You know what? Just for you Weird Al Yankovic, I'm gonna put you in S tier. This is a super biased tier list if you couldn't tell. Now, the melodica is an interesting instrument because it's keyboard. However, it's got the sounds of an accordion. You can place down this with your hands. So right off the bat, it gets points for having a good grip. However, to play it, you got a little thing here, and you gotta blow into it, and combat-wise, this has got the benefits of a cymbal, of the crash cymbals. You can kind of have a weird disjointed shield, a bit smaller hitbox, but you still got flopping power, you still got defending power if you really wanted to, and it even has a whip at the end of it, so you can go flung. You can swing this thing around, strike people's eyes if you wanted to. However, playing it, you have to have this thing connected. Someone could easily come by and rip it out. I'm not going to because I don't want to damage this thing, but basically, this thing has its similar weakness to the oboe. So, combat-wise, I would say it's pretty mid. However, it's got the benefit playing this. I'd say this is a good B tier. It has its problems. Actually, C tier. I'd say it's C tier. Just because being able to remove the musicality very easily and not having to... I'd say it's better than... No. I'd say it's B tier. It's got good maneuverability. It's got fun musicality potential. However, it's got weaknesses when it comes to combat. Let's go for the timpanis. The timpanis, you cool. They sound pretty cool. They got a big reverberal noise to them, and you got the benefits of having little whopping sticks now. Someone could easily break them. However, you could still kind of just go boop, 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 boop on their heads, and that's pretty good. However, actual maneuverability is gonna be a lot harder. These things do have wheels. However, you have to unlock let's say that you have 4 of them, right? You have to unlock each one, then move them forward as a unit if you want to use them as like a moving, powerful wall. However, that kind of like this basically acts as a tank class, and it'll be a lot harder to actually have the maneuverability in order to use combat-wise. This is our definitely our best variation of kind of like a tankier class of weapons that move as like a giant tank and unit. But otherwise, you know what? Let's just put it in. I think we'll put this in C tier. Put it next to our tuba. Air horns. Not a lot of combat defense you can do with it. It's kind of just a small thing. It has a fuel limit because it has like those little cans. Like it's got the air that in order to come out in order to make that noise. And if you run out, you basically have no instrument. You just have 2 bottled cans. And even if you can use that to discombobulate your enemies, you know, sticking it into their ear and then like going really bleeding their ears dry, you have to kind of sustain that, keep it on them with a tiny little bottle, and then your other hand would have to defend yourself from any other oncoming threat. It doesn't even have any musicality. It's more like a percussion instrument where it's got one note, it's got one thing it can do, and then once it does that, you don't have much else to do. Like that's a sentence. I'll go with fail the audition for that one. Now the triangle, man. This is an instrument. It's one of those instruments that exists. They got a lot going for it. It's a little whapping thing. Not gonna do a lot of damage. Literally a toothpick for the goons to use. Triangle itself, I mean, actually, you could technically kind of use it as like a kind of like a brass knuckle, except giant triangle. Someone couldn't just steal that. I'm gonna put this in fail the audition. I don't think it's gonna be a very valid weapon. What will be a very valid weapon? What will be a very valid weapon is gonna be the chimes. Now these are in your little tiny little chimes go ooh. These are your honking chimes, the ones that sound like death bells. Okay, they have wheels once again, and it is a giant wall, basically a giant wall. It's literally a consistent wall that you can move forward. However, you may argue, oh, but you can't exactly actually use that as a weapon. You won't be using that as a weapon. You'll be using that as a defense when you have freaking hammers to use as offense, okay? And these hammers are chonky, I'm pretty sure are metallic, because they gotta bonk at these chimes pretty decently hard. So this thing this is our most successful tank class, with having a giant wall to protect itself that's maneuverable, and with actual hammers that will crush enemy skulls. So I'd say we got an S tier tank. There you go. Now, classical guitar, I'd call it the cousin of a cello. It's not as cool, but it has a lot more lightweight, and it's not as very big massy at the end. It's a little more concentrated at the lower end of the instrument. So, and you've seen people whack things with the guitar. These things got weight, and these things are really good at just bam, whacking someone in the head. I'd say it has the same benefits as the guitar. It's pretty maneuverable. They tend to have a little wrapping thing around them. So I'd say we got ourselves an A tier weapon. But it does have the weaknesses of the strings though. You have to place your fingers in the right spots to actually play it, and some of those chords can be kind of tricky, you know. I think. Never played guitar. I think B tier is good for it. I'd say B tier. Let's go with the bass drum. Now, specifically, this is kind of I'm gonna call this another tank class, I guess. If you've seen people in band, they tend to have this little thing that goes around their back and like they go forward to hold the drum, and they can kind of just go womp to the sides of the drum in front of them. And if you've seen robots, basically you become the big butt lady that has a giant like thing at the back of their end. What you could do, you'd be banging on the drum on rhythm, like bum bum bum, and then whack. You put your whole weight to the side and just being able to push people left and right with this giant thing in front of you. However, someone could easily come up from behind if you're not paying attention and push you to the side, and you'll fall down. You'll just fall over. You won't have a lot of room to work with when you're on the floor. But otherwise, I'd say it's pretty good. You could play on rhythm. You could do lots with it. I'd say this is a tier tank class. Okay, so I put the drum set in here just because I was like, it's got it's like, you know, most orchestras have a drum set. However, it's not that good, with the sole reason being that I haven't seen ones with wheels like for each individual part. literally each goon would just come by, steal one, then use that, like, they would like take the symbol, then use that on you, just throw it on you, then you have to run away from the instrument. If the enemy even lets you play it though, not gonna really do much. You'd sound really cool with the sick beats, but then like they would just come at you. You'd be very stationary. You do have drumsticks. Those drumsticks have whapping power, but other than the drumsticks itself, you wouldn't be able to do much. I'd say just because you do get drumsticks, I put you at D tier, but then people being able to easily come by, yoink your pieces of the set away, no matter how big your drum set is, not gonna do much to protect yourself with at the end of the day. Now we got the clarinet. Clarinet's pretty cool. It's got decent lengths. Woodward plays it. It's got nice smooth notes, and it's got buttons. I'd say this is a very much B tier weapon. It's got, once again, be playing it in front of you like this, you're blowing into it, and you just press the buttons and what you want, and just go wham wham, poke poke if you really want to. And actually using it by itself, it'd be a very straightforward stick. Literally a big stick, and you just whack people with it. So I'd say that's very much, it's nothing special. It doesn't have any cool tricks up its sleeve. It's just middle of the road, super good, super reliable. I'd say that's a good B tier. Now I did put electric guitar in, even though I put classical guitar in. I'd say they're basically the same, except if you happen to get a electric guitar that's like spiky, that's pretty cool. So I'll put it right next to classical guitar. Now, marimba. Very similar to, kind of similar to the chimes. Marimbas, they tend to have wheels. It kind of acts as a table. You can kind of, once again, it comes with little whapping sticks. However, your whapping sticks are more similar to the Tiffany ones, where they're kind of a little ball at the end. And then they're not as deadly, but if you do manage to kill someone, you can then take their rib cage, place it next to the marimba, and then that would act as another extension of your instrument and make the wall of the marimba even bigger. And you could just roll forward with the bones of your enemies and go. I'd say that's a pretty good. I'd say that's a B tier. Yep, B tier. Now, bassoon. I really like the bassoon just because I've never played it, but it sounds really cool and it's very pretty to look at. I like how it looks and how it's designed. Once again, it's in the classification of giant big stick. It is the biggest stick, and it's pretty effective it would be pretty effective at keeping enemies away because it's a giant stick. Because it's even bigger, you kind of whomp with a lot more range. However, actually playing it, if you'll notice, there's a little part that comes at the end because that's where you blow into it. So now we come into a similar scenario with the oboe, where it leaves a spot open for enemies to attack, disabling the weapon, disabling your ability to play. So weapon-wise, very good, very strong. Basically clarinet, but better, but then it's got the weakness of an oboe. So I'd say, just for power-wise, I'll put it in B tier. I haven't really ordered these like specifically between rows and stuff. I'll do that at the end. Now we got the cello bass, and the cello, not cello bass, we got the string bass. You can't exactly be super mobile with it. You would basically become a stationary tank. Instead of being able to be a moving wall like all the other tanks we've discussed, this would be a stationary one that would stand its ground and use that bass part not actually as a weapon, but as a shield. And then you'd use your bow, your chunky bow, because those bows are very chunky. So you kind of use that as your main way of defending, along with the top part of the base being like a boom, moving it around like that, and then using that end as a way to keep enemies away. But with the string bass, the strings are so big, and so the movement is a lot more drastic, where you try to find those notes you want to play. So just because of that, it's not the best. It's not going to be the most consistent playing wise while fighting. However, I'd say this is a very cool, interesting change in the way you would play, you would fight with all the other tanks. So I'll give it a B tier. I'll give it another B tier. Then we come to our final instrument, the harmonica. If you don't have the little thingy-mabob to hold it onto you, it's gonna be a lot harder. You have both of your hands like one going like this. So that's going to be a lot hard to actually do stuff with. However, if you're able to have that, you basically leave your hands free. Instead of the harmonica being the actual weapon, it becomes a supplement. It becomes an addition to your kit. Pretend banjo is in there, right next to classical guitar. You can play banjo and harmonica, and you could go absolutely crazy instrument-wise, and you could sound insane. So the harmonica becomes your main musicality to your fight, But then you can leave your hands are open to use that weapon of choice as the weapon instead of an instrument. It's a very fantastic supplement, but as a weapon itself, not as good. I'd say this is a solid C tier, but it will boost almost any weapon up into the A tier, just because of the addition of being able to play it with your hands free. Now, this is the end of the list, or is it? I've got one trick up my sleeve that you were not expecting. Hand boning. Now, if you don't know what hand boning is, it's just the act of using your hands and your body as the instrument itself. The simple use of using your body as a percussional instrument makes you an absolute S tier god. Because then your life becomes a rhythm game where you punch people on beat and you do cool stuff with that. And this is our final, the final tier list. This is what we're looking at. We got hand boning at the top, and we got triangle at the bottom. So, if you agree with my tier list, make sure to slap that like button in the face like a boss. But if you don't agree with the tier list, then burn in hell. I hope you have a lovely day now.